Hi. Session 10 writing task is to write a letter to the team leader of community mental health team requesting care and support for Mr. Ming Zhang who is mentally challenged. Here you are the charge nurse working in mental health ward where Mr. Zhang will be discharged from and this letter is written to the team leader of the local community mental health team. Let us look into the case note first. If we look into the case note in detail, we can see there are two dates given, that is the admission date and the discharge plan date. Here the admission date is irrelevant and not to be mentioned in the letter, but the writer can get confused with the discharge plan date. Here the date given is a planned discharge date and the writer should not use this date as a date of the letter. Instead can use the current date because there is no other specific date given in the case note. The details of the patient given are Mr. Ming Zhang, age 30 years, male. Here the name and age are important and needs to be mentioned in the reference. It would be better if you could mention the name in each paragraph while writing the letter. The diagnosis given in the case note is the most vital information and should be emphasized in the letter. Since the purpose of the letter is to request for the support and care for the patient from the community mental health team, only the present medical background is relevant. Therefore, certain information given in the medical and psychiatric background are irrelevant. But not to forget to mention that the patient had previous episode for the first time following his divorce 1 year ago. Since then he is jobless because that is semi-irrelevant information which has link with his current condition. Because prior his divorce he never had any mental problem which is clearly mentioned in the case note. In the social background section, all the points are not worth mentioning, like he came to Australia as a laborer 5 years ago, he is a permanent resident now, and his wife had an affair. All this information are irrelevant, and the team leader of the community mental health team doesn't need to know all of this information to provide care and support. All the information mentioned in the medications, nursing management, and progress assessment discharge plan are important and should be mentioned in the letter. But the writer can get confused organizing this information while framing the letter because the information given in each sections are mixed. Like in the nursing management section it is given his mother was educated regarding the importance of psychiatrist medication, but actually while framing the letter this information should come in the social background. Therefore the writer must organize the information given in the letter in an appropriate manner in such a way that continuity of the letter retained. Along with that, the writer should make sure that the information given in the case note is not copied to the letter. That is, writing the same information without changing a word. Rather, the writer should frame the sentence the way the writer likes. For example, mirtazapine increased from 15 mg to 30 mg given in the nursing management section can be written as mirtazapine dose was increased to 30 mg. Taking all these points, we have to prepare a letter in an organized manner. Now let us see how we can write a letter with the help of a sample letter written by a candidate from India. If we look at the address, the candidate has written the address in a proper way, but there is a small error in it. Here, the candidate has not used the article the in front of the designation, team leader. That is, the writer should have written the team leader. The date and the salutation are properly written. Moving to the reference, the writer could have written it better. While writing the reference, we don't have to write the word aged. Instead, can simply say 30 years. So we can rewrite the reference as RE, then place a colon and write Mr. Ming Zhang, 36 years. This is the correct way to write a reference. Moving to the introduction paragraph. I am writing this letter to refer Mr. Ming Zhang, who has been diagnosed with major depression. He is ready to discharge on 26 April 2011 into your facility for further care and support. Here, this introduction fails to impress the reader because it doesn't deliver enough information and you don't have to write this letter because the person who writes and the person who reads know that this is a letter. Therefore, we can avoid using this phrase. Here, this patient is going home and the community mental health team in the required frequency at his home, but the letter says into your facility, which is wrong, and the use of he is ready to discharge is wrong, and instead you should write he is ready to be discharged, and the writer failed to mention the kind of support he needs, which is follow-up care and management after his discharge on 26 April 2011. So the introduction paragraph can be rewritten either as I am writing to refer Mr. Ming Zhang, who was admitted with major depression following a deliberate self-harm attempt. He is progressing and will be discharged on 26 April 2011 and requires your further follow-up care and management. Or can be written as I am writing to request follow-up care and management for Mr. Ming Zhang, who was admitted with major depression following a deliberate self-harm attempt. He is progressing and will be discharged on 26 April 2011, and this is the perfect way to write an introduction. Moving to the second paragraph, Mr. Zhang was admitted with deliberate self-poisoning and he had second DSP, which doesn't provide enough information because the letter says the patient was admitted with deliberate self-poisoning, which is wrong because the case note says we admit the patient after this attempt. So you have to write it as Mr. Zhang was admitted following a deliberate self-poisoning, but in the letter you have to write it as Mr. Zhang was admitted with depression following his second deliberate self-harm attempt. And since it says second deliberate self-harm attempt, it gives an idea that there was a first one. Coming to the second sentence, he was prescribed with increased dosage of mirtazapine. Here the word prescribed should be replaced with administered because during the hospitalization, the nurse ensured the patient is administered with the medicine. The next sentence says he received CBT counseling that later showed good mood progression, low risk of self-harm and no suicidal ideation, but still require follow-up and a close monitor for SI in community. Here, this sentence is too lengthy and carries a lot of information that doesn't give clarity because of the improper clubbing of the sentence. You can club the second and third sentence and reorganize the information a bit to make it an impressive one, such as he was administered or treated with increased dosage of mirtazapine and underwent CBT counseling for which he responded well to the treatment. Now his mood has improved with low risk of self-harm and less suicidal thoughts, but still require follow-up care and monitor for SI in community. The last sentence seems alright. Moving to the third paragraph, Mr. Singh is unemployed since he had divorce that led to major depression, which is not that impressive, and the name of the patient is written wrong here. The writer used Mr. Singh instead of Mr. Zhang. We can rewrite the sentence in a much impressive way, such as Mr. Zhang had his first episode of deliberate self-harm, poisoning and depression following his divorce 1 year ago, and since then he was jobless. The next sentence says he had a medical history of gout, hepatitis A and work-related problems. Since this is his current medical history, you should replace had with has. He has a medical history of gout, hepatitis A and work-related problems. The third sentence says he lives with NESB mother who contradicts taking psychiatric medicine due to her Chinese medicine belief. Here you have to mention this in detail, such as he lives with his mother who is a Chinese speaking person who doesn't like his son to follow psychiatric medicine because of her Chinese medicine belief. Moving to the last paragraph, upon discharge plan, make sure he continues CBT with his assigned Chinese speaking clinician, which has too many mistakes. First of all, we doesn't say upon discharge plan. We either say upon discharge or as per discharge plan. And the writer should use pronoun without using the name of the patient here. And you should be polite while framing the sentence. So this sentence can be rewritten as per the discharge plan, Please make sure Mr. Zhang continues CBT counseling with his assigned Chinese-speaking clinician. The next sentence says, avoid benzomedicine as he uses DSP and observe the side effects for the treatment. Here, the first and the second part of the sentence should be swapped, which is more organized. The last sentence seems alright. Coming to the wind-up sentence, you have to mention the name of the patient along with the sentence. Then it becomes, please contact me if you have any queries regarding Mr. Zhang. The sign of yours sincerely, charge nurse is perfectly written. Here we can see that the introduction fails to impress the reader. The second and third paragraphs are a bit confusing. The letter lacks some information and has improper coupling of sentence and fails to mention in detail about the patient's social history, which is very important because it is linked to his mental conditions. Considering all these points, this letter deserves a score of 280. Thank you.
New method for OET learning. How are you preparing? Online or offline? For speaking and writing, you can get tutor reviews. How will you be able to manage your reading and listening? How can you manage your self-practice easier than never before? Learn OET in Merlin's way. Most successful OET learning method from world's best online trainer. Chat now. mentormerlinexam.com